Welcome back to the 7th video in our 3D Racer tutorial series. Today we're going to look at doing a lap counter and also adding to our terrain. And I think you guys are going to be a little upset with me for the terrain thing because we're going to basically erase a lot of the stuff we added on top of it. But you'll see that it'll be worth it. I want to start with the lap counter first, and then come back and do the the terrain. So for the lap counter, I'm going to go over into my canvas. I have my timer panel here. Let's double click this so I can see it in the scene view. And it was this right here that contained all of these objects. So I'm going to close that. I'm going to duplicate that. So Command D. And I'm going to move it over to the left. I just snapped to 2D, make that a little bit easier for myself. Zoom out and pull it over. Now there's one thing that's easy to overlook while doing this is that you still need to come over here and anchor, because you'll see that it's still anchored. Not really set the anchor. I'm going to set it right here. So even though it didn't really change anything, when I do that, it makes it so that whenever we move screens around, it doesn't want to snap back to the right. It just evens that out. Let's go ahead and name this duplicate panel to, I'm going to call it lap panel. And I want to keep my lap timer, but I don't really need the second display, everything down here. Second display down to milli display, I'm going to control and delete all of those. And then I'm just going to make it into, call it the lap timer. Instead it's going to say lap, just lap. And I'm probably going to size that up. Let's go to like a 30. That looks better. And take the min display. And for this, I'm going to zero that out. And we're going to come back in just a bit. Am I going to add that later? You know what? I'm going to go ahead and call this one instead of min display. I'll put a 0 here for now. Call it laps completed. And I'm going to duplicate that and call that one laps required. We're going to make this, we'll complete all the scripting for this later on, but for now we're just going to make the interface for this. And I think these should both have a font size of 30. I held shift and it's going to change both of their fonts at the same time. I have them both selected when I did that. And I want to take the laps required and put a slash in front of it. So that looks okay. Let me move them both over at the same time. That looks better. Last thing I want to do is I want to unparent these, like get them out of lap panel, so I can size that. So I'm going to select T on my keyboard or this transfer tool over here and size it up so it looks a little bit more. Let me zoom into it. Give me a little more control here. I feel like I could move it all over just a tad bit and it would look fine. So let me take my lap timer, all this, hit W on my keyboard and scoot it over. Did not grab it all. Try that again. Now move all those over just a hair. And now drag them back under lap panel. There you go. So we're going to make a quick script just to count every time that we hit that trigger. So I'm going to hide my canvas again. And actually, I think, do we already have? Yeah, we already have our script. We're just going to do it on lap complete. We're just going to set it up in there. So lap complete, open that script up. Let me zoom out just a little bit so I can get some context. So at the top, we have all our variables. And then this is what happens when we hit it. And then this right here is what we added this line to make sure that we're setting player preferences and saving actual best times. So completed laps is a number, and it's always going to be a whole number. So I'm just going to add it here under save time. I'm going to create a public int whole number, and we'll call it completed laps. Oh my gosh, it hit caps locks. Man, I want one video where I don't make like a silly mistake like that. Okay, completed laps. And at the end of our script, after all this is going on, I'm gonna, for me, line 57, the raw time, before turning things on and off, just right above that, I'm gonna add in, I need to actually display that number, right? So I need to create a, I'll just press return on line 17, a public text message pro, because we are going to be putting this to UGUI, and I will call that lap counter. So now down here, lap counter dot text equals, and then we know it's going to be a string, so we're taking a number plus, and then that int called completed laps. And I think that is. And so we haven't actually, though, told it to add one every time we hit the on trigger enter event, so we need to add that. So I'm going to go to line 22. I'm just going to put it under this. That doesn't matter, the order there doesn't matter, as long as it's outside of this if statement. That's all that matters. So I'll just create a little space here. And we will just say lap counter plus, sorry, complete it. Why did I say that? Sorry, I meant to say complete it. I need that integers plus equals 1. Here. Save that. I think that's it. So we need to just go assign this on our lap completed script, which will be on our, is it lap time manager? No. I moved some stuff around last time. It was our trigger. Where is that at though? Starting trigger? There you go. So lap counter from our canvas. Lap panel. Laps completed. That's the one I'm trying to use. So I'm going to save and see if I can make it around the track once, and it should update to 1. Oh, you know what? Instead of 0 at the end of this, sorry, on laps required, it should be like I think we're making a 3 lap race. So I'm going to go ahead and put a 3 here and save that. I don't know why I skipped that step. Let me press play, and then I'll see you after I get around the track once. Okay, so our it's good to know our best time did update for me because it was 118 before, and laps went up to the next whole number, which is 1. So that works. Great. Man, the enemy car was so aggressive. He kept like knocking me off a little bit here. All right, so let's look at the terrain. We're going to be using a new tool. So the reason I had you do terrains using the terrains tool earlier is because it's good to know how to use that. It has a lot of different functionalities, but we're going to use a free tool that's right now currently free in the asset store. That's why I don't want to rely on these tools, because these things change all the time. And we're going to use that tool to redo our terrain. And it's going to, instead of us having to use a brush to lay out our grass and all this stuff, our trees, we want to use a tool that will automatically do that for us. So I'm going to give you a link in Classroom. You have to be signed into the Junior School Unity Asset Store project, but it's going to be called Vegetation Spawner. And I'm going to open this in Unity. And I did the project last night, so it's already downloaded for me, but you're going to download it here, open it up in the package manager. If you can't find it, make sure it's set to My Assets, and then hit import and let that run. Shouldn't take too long. Okay, so now that that's downloaded, what I want to do is go to my terrain, and I'm going to make a new manager. I'm going to make a new object to hold this, actually. So I'm going to go create empty. I'm going to call it terrain manager and make the terrain a child of that. So it's going to be below my managers here. And another child of the terrain manager is going to be terrain spawner. Actually, let me give it a different name. I might just call it, we'll just call it terrain spawner. I'm thinking more like flora spawner or whatever. On this new spawner object, we are going to add a component, and it's called vegetation spawner. So this tool allows us to do mass, get out of 2D, changes to our terrain, but it will delete what we've done thus far. So right now it needs to know on terrain spawner what terrain we want to use. So we'll take the terrain that we have in the hierarchy and drag it over. It'll now know this setting here. Leave this alone for now. We'll come back to this in just a little bit. And we have a trees, grass, and so forth. I'm going to go ahead and move my projects area back to objects. And you have tree number 1 and 2. Let's go to tree number 1. Going back to terrain spawner, I'm going to add a tree. And so it's called broadleaf. I'm just going to search for it. So this is the first tree. Boom. Double click that. And you can see it instantly populates the entire map, including my roads, with this tree, which is great. So let's talk about what some of these options are. It gives it a name, and then it sets it as a prefab, and then the spawning chances. So the chances of it spawning in different areas. If I reduce this, you'll see that it reduces just the overall amount that we're going to have here. We can randomize to reset the way the trees are laid out here, and then distance between the trees, and then scaling for the trees, so you can change just the variance amount, so they can be really, if you grab the center, then you can create a lot of variety between different heights and so forth. But the further you drag down, the more likely they are to be smaller, so keeping it like this should be fine. I wouldn't really play with sync amount over here. And then height range, this is about how high up in the world you want this to appear. So the higher it is, the less likely your trees are to spawn on them. Because this is set to 0. Slope range is if they're going to actually, right here, they're only going to appear on slopes for me here. This is a really cool tool because you can make it so certain trees show up on the sides of hills. Like low brush would be nice for that. But for now, I want them everywhere. And then curvature range is sort of similar to that as well. Now, the most important part for us is going to be this layer mask. This is why it was really important that earlier when we went into our, I believe we put in textures, we named these different layers when we made our terrains earlier on, when we assigned our diffuse and normal maps. On terrain spawner, layer mask, add, I only want it on the grass. And then when you do that, let's make sure that is working. Maximum strength, right here. Never set it to 0 because it'll just, all the way to 1. But that should cause them only to spawn. I had to move this so that it would reset, basically. But now it should not appear on anything that was on the asphalt or rock layer. So yeah, let's add that tree. I'm going to add one more tree here. I'm going to add the second one we had. Broadleaf 2. Double click that. And since it is its own entity, it also needs, you have to click back and forth. Make sure that you have the settings that you want for it, and I'm going to try to ensure that it is only on my grass layer. And I'm just going to move something so that it sort of respawns them and clears them out of the grass layers. The grass layer. Asphalt. Now the last thing I had, now this is where I got into a lot of trouble. I couldn't, this is, I got stuck and I spent several hours trying to figure it out. I just still couldn't do it. In Classroom, I'm going to give you another package for the Polygon Nature pack. So this is that low poly stuff. We can do some of these trees instead if we want. You'll have that available to you. I'm going to open this in Unity. You're going to have to download again. I'm going to go make sure I go ahead and import. And what I really want to get from here are our grass meshes. So I was looking at my video. I got it all put on YouTube, and then I noticed in editing, after I was finished editing, that some of the video just dropped out. So I have to go back and re-record some parts of this. So I apologize if it seems a little disjointed at this point. I think where we last left off, we were downloading the Polygon Nature pack out of the Unity Asset Store. And I went ahead and just drug that into my textures folder once it finished. And I also downloaded another one called Grass Pack. And I can put a link to this as well. So the difference is this: the Polygon Nature Pack came with, in the prefabs plants, you actually have these models of a plant. It has a renderer. So it's like a 3D object. And I wanted our terrain spawner to put in models, but I kept on having issues with it. I couldn't get it to spawn the way I wanted to. So I apologize. You might already see some grass in here, and this is from the last time I was doing this project. But let me show you the issue I was having with the normal way it works, and then a way to still add in grass and make it look good. So on your terrain spawner, under grass, hit add. Right now I have none, and it says it's set to texture. I'm going to change it to mesh. And then I'm going to drag in one of these things that looks like a plant to me, or grass. So I'll try this one here. And you can see that it is spawning it in. But weirdly, I'm not really sure why, it's only spawning in like these lines all across the map. It's a very odd occurrence. And if I increase this, randomize, nothing's changing. So there's something weird about the way the mesh thing is working on this. And I even bought that grass pack with the intent of adding more meshes, right, of these different plants, but it just was not working. So instead of doing a mesh, I'm going to switch this back to texture and then drag in a texture. Now, it might be easier just to click here. Once you have the grass pack in, you have some really good looking grass that might work better for you. But the Polygon pack had a few too. But if I type in grass, I have grass 2D, 3D. You have the D is diffuse, and then the N is the normal map for a lot of this stuff. So I'm just going to choose one. I'm going to choose 4D. And let me increase my width and height just a little bit so we can see it. I'm going to hit randomize. And we should be seeing some grass coming up. And there's a little bit right there. It's very small. That's not a lot here. So I might just jump up my height and my width to make it like a little bit bigger. So it's a little bit more drastic. This randomize, let me add in. Same thing we did before. I only wanted my grass layer. And I'm going to hit respawn. And yeah, this is just a very thin grass for here. So let me see if I can find a different one. I'm going to add another one. And let's texture again. So I apologize. I really wanted to do mesh, but it just didn't work out. So let's try this one right here. And same thing. Now I could play with the color some. Let me wait on that though. Let's kind of keep the width a little high and the length kind of high as well. And it's a little more fleshed. Let me increase that spawn chance. Randomize. I'm going to do the same thing, add it to my grass layer and hit respawn, and that should set. So it's kind of coming in a little bit better. So you can play with multiple different types of grasses. And another cool thing is you have these primary colors. So I might keep that one green, but I might go with like a blue. And see if that secondary color like kind of gives you like a brighter accent. So you have some different colored grasses. So I would encourage you to go in and try to put some flowers all throughout. You can see some of those trees are like just a little wonky. They're not quite on the ground. Or it could just be my camera is clipping through the hills. But that's a nice effect. You have these polygon packs. I would even suggest, let me go back to my trees. I haven't done this yet. I might even try adding in another tree. But I want to go look here in textures. And my polygon nature pack. I'm just kind of curious how good these trees look. These are low poly, but they might look pretty good for what we're going for here. So I'm adding my third one, and I want to drag this guy. Where's it at? Game object. I need to do it here. Sorry. How's that look? Hey, those came out okay. And I just need to increase the height on this. Well, that might reduce it a little bit. Scaling. Let's jump that scaling up some. So yeah, you try to pull in some of those low poly trees as well. Those look pretty good. Add the same thing. Add your layer mask. Only my grass layer. You might need to play with your strength or something like that. Help reset that. Oh, I don't need that one. I need scaling. Yeah, it looks they look kind of small, but I'll have to play with that later on. But I'm liking the way that looks. So add some grass and some trees. The last thing I want to add in here, if you notice on the terrain, I'm going to save Command S. I'm going to go back to terrains. You have a grass wind spring. This only affects your grass. So if I pull this, you might notice that the wind is kind of playing here with the grass in our scene view. You don't want to go crazy with this. I wouldn't really even play with these settings too much. But you have this the overall speed and then how hard it hits and then the frequency of that. And so when we press start in the game, we should see the grass waving with that motion. Gives us sort of a natural look. However, is this side not spawning or is it just the billboarding? There's grass over here, but you know, on our grass layer, we might want to go fix this. It should be showing up. Maybe this is on settings. I gotta remember where this is held at. I thought it was on terrain. Billboard start. We might need to play with some billboard stuff to see if we can figure out why we're not seeing our grass a little bit early on. So if I play with this, you're going to see it's going to way out. We don't want to have that too high. You want it kind of probably no more than like, I don't know, I thought 500 was okay for me. 500 was where I set. The grass density should be up. Maybe grass distance being reduced. Yeah, I need to play with this a little bit more to figure out why I can't see really my grass too well inside of my scene over here. But it has something to do with how big my screen is too. I think it has something to do with billboarding. All right, guys, sorry, that was a tangent overall. Last thing is that we have grass moving. We don't have our trees moving. So we're going to go over here and add a 3D object wind zone. And it will spawn at 0, 0, 0 at the corner of our map, which is fine. It creates a directional. Right now we're set to directional. We can do spherical. I wouldn't do that. It creates just a sphere of wind. We really want to do directional so it's moving in one way. And I wouldn't play with your main and your turbulence or the pulse or the frequency. Just kind of leave those be. If you really ramp them up, you're going to like start stretching your trees out and get some crazy effects that we don't want. I will move mine just a little bit closer to my track. But you notice as I'm moving it in the game view, you can see that it's messing with these trees some. Where you move it isn't really relevant. I would just move it to the side of your track. And if you press play, you should see some motion in your trees. And it makes it feel a little bit more vibrant. And that should be affecting our trees here. Zoom way in. I wonder if our little polygon ones are not being affected. Yeah, they've been affected. Great. So my suggestion is you can now make a more realistic area or like terrain for your game, and then let's go back next time, add a skybox, add some other small details, and keep moving through trying to complete this game.